Does Kevin Willard have Nova back? Welcome to another edition of Big East Energy Weekly. We're your co-hosts, Casey Matthews, Mark Zanetto. Mark, it's good to see you. How's life?
Oh, man. Good to be seen. Good to be seen.
I'll tell you what, it's good to be seen if you're a Villanova fan. That Acaden Lewis commitment last week, and it happened right after our show. But man, what big news for Villanova! I know you know a lot about the kid with UConn being on him and whatnot. But what are your thoughts?
I initially thought when Darius Adams decommitted from UConn that they may go this route just to kind of like, and maybe they checked in, maybe they didn't. I don't know I can't confirm or deny that. I just know that they were heavy with him, had him in for a visit. It was Kamani Young led recruitment. Really, really good left-handed lead guard, high level ball skills, has a ton of creativity. I think that's the biggest thing. I think people were worried about his size being only 6'3", but I think a lot of UConn fans were always kind of like are seduced by the recent results, but the championships we've won in the past, Khalid El-Amin, Shabazz Napier, Kemba Walker, the list goes on and on. I think it's a great get for Nova. You know what I mean? Like we watched another lefty Villanova last night carry the Knicks to another win against the Celtics. And I'm not putting Jalen Brunson vibes on Acaden Lewis, but similar competitive nature. I think what I think Kevin Willard gets out of him is a kid that's on the ascension. He's not what I would call a pure shooter, but he's a capable shooter, right? He shot 32%, I think, from in the EYBL this season. He's an excellent free throw shooter. He's a good player at getting 2 feet in the paint. He's a true lead guard, and I don't think you can just go portal to create a culture, to create a roster that makes sense, because you're Villanova. Like there's a lot of tradition there. Like you can't just constantly bring in portal guys. And I think it's a huge get for them. I mean, he's a 4-star, borderline 5-star recruit.
Yeah, what I think is great for that staff and for the team and fans is so many unknowns, and so for a guy like that to commit there with, listen, Kevin Willard is a phenomenal coach. He's got a pedigree. He's got a history of success. So I don't think he's not an unknown, but him at Villanova is an unknown, and so I think to get a commitment like that at this point too is huge for them. And two, when you look at the point guards in the league, you got to have one.
Yeah,
you've got to have one if you're going to win it. And I think that this is a big get for them to be able to just sort of, first of all, you don't know how long he'll be there, right? With this day and age, but let's just play it out that he's going to be there for at least a couple of years. At least it gives you, at least you got your point guard.
The other thing I was going to say too is the kid he's older for his class. He'll turn 19 in October. So he's not like a 17, 18-year-old kid. I think, that's that year, and this because you've coached at a high level, like that year from 18 to 19 is such a huge progression, and it's such a like physically, just kind of that outlook. He's more mature for his age in that respect. I think what Villanova fans need to know about him is he needs to be more consistent. I think some of the things that coaches have said about him is defensively, he has to be committed. That's something that Kevin Willard's not going to tolerate if he lacks on defense.
Sure.
And then durability, like the Big East is tough, right? He's listed at 6'3". He's probably more like 6 foot 6'1". So how does he hold up in the rigors of a Big East season? But he's also a freshman. I think sometimes people get seduced by the whole, the Cooper Flags, the AJ DeBonsa who's going to BYU, Darren Peterson who's going to Kansas. These guys who are likely one and dones. Even someone like Liam, Steph Castle from a couple years ago, like that's one guy. That's one seminal player. The other freshmen who are 5-star recruits sometimes don't become one and dones. That's also just not how it works sometimes. So
Yeah.
I think you need both. I think you need both to compete. You either need one and done transfers or one and done freshmen to transform specific seasons, right?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good call.
So you know what I mean? Like, so I think one and done is that phrase is being, it's evolving. It could mean a myriad of things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what's interesting too, when you look at this signing, and I don't have the information in terms of who recruited him, but Coach Willard also announced his staff, and there's a couple names that really kind of stand out to me, and one is Ashley Howard, and keeping Ashley Howard on staff, and I think to someone who's not locked into the Big East and understanding, Big East basketball, might just sort of gloss over that. I think that's a huge deal. And in fact, back when the Nova stuff was going on, we didn't know who was going to be the coach. I have an old friend who was on the old staff, just hit him up and just checking on him and said, what do you think is going to happen? He said, I don't know, but whoever it is, I hope they understand how important Ashley Howard is to continuing success here and figuring this thing out at Villanova, because he's so tied in to that area, to the state, and being able to get those kids out of Philadelphia. And so I think that's a huge deal for them. I also think they were able to keep the GM Dunleavy, which that whole GM thing is interesting in college basketball right now. But I think a place like that probably important and probably helpful for Coach Willard, to be able to come in and have the information already there in terms of NIL, who are the big players, where's the money coming from. So having that guy or having that spot stay like that, I think is a big deal. It's beneficial for them as well. The rest of the staff kind of rounds out. I know a couple of the guys I'm excited that they were able to land. And basically, he brought the whole Maryland staff almost over.
Right.
Kevin Norris, who was part of that Florida Gulf Coast. What they call that? The old Dunk City or
Dunk City.
Was that it? Yeah, he was there. I'm a North Carolina Wilmington grad, and he was at North Carolina Wilmington for a bit, so I like him a lot. Charlie Butler,
the Seahawks,
baby, that's right.
Yep.
Charlie Butler, the ops guy, will be there for Maryland. So he was at Seton Hall with Coach Willard. So there's a lot of familiarity, obviously, on the staff. Brenton Perry is going to be the video guy and assistant coach. So they've rounded out the staff. I think it's a good staff. Obviously, hitting a home run here with Acaden Lewis.
I have one question before we move on. I wonder if, and maybe you know this because you know the staff pretty well. I wonder if we could find out, are they willing to push the NIL limits? Because there's still some players left, right?
Sure.
I'm not taking this to UConn. We're out. Like we're done spending. Like we're trying to fill out the back end of our roster.
Yeah.
But I also feel like we retain the most. So what is Villanova willing to kind of get up to that St. John's, even Creighton level of, hey man, we're gonna go a few $1 million to go get, I don't know if a PJ Haggerty makes sense.
Sure.
Someone of that, Jameer Watkins is still out there, 6'7" wing. Like these are guys who you can go get. And Kevin Willard has a history of coaching some big time talents. Derek Queen being one last year. He's probably going in the NBA draft. I'm pretty sure he is. So I don't know. What do you think that's a possibility for them?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I don't think you can be at Villanova and be in this day and age, you can't be worried to me about how much money you're spending. I mean, besides UConn's, recent run in the national championships, I mean, you had Nova not that long ago.
Yeah.
That was dominant. I mean,
they're playing for the Knicks right now. We know.
100%. Yeah. So like, I don't think you have that tradition, that history and go, let me just save some bucks here and there and just have an okay team. I think the goal there is to win the Big East. And when you look across the aisle and you see some of those names in Coach Pitino and Coach McDermott and who's that guy at UConn?
What's his name? Hurley?
Coach Hurley. When you see some of those guys there, and we can't forget about Shaka. And I know he's doing it different, but you you've just got to make moves and spend some money where you can.
Is there a better commercial right now than the AT&T Villanova? It's been a long time without you, and like throwing the hat to Dante DiVincenzo.
That's pretty good.
Honestly, like as far as like a Big East, that's a Big East commercial.
Yeah.
So AT&T, hit us up. You can sponsor the whole damn network if you want. Let's go. Well, I'll do Villanova content all day if AT&T wants to sponsor us.
We could get into that. We'll have to figure that out. And I would also not be opposed to that. So let's get into the schedule here in just a second. Before we get into the schedule, Mark, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our sponsor. As I'm surprised that you aren't sitting there eating a steak with the Asabasa hat on, but our founding sponsor is Asabasa Spice. And listen, normally it's you that's just going on with what's the saying, waxing poetic about Asabasa, but I'm going to steal the show today and just give a little plug to our founding sponsor, Asabasa Spice. So listen, if you like bland, flavorless food, don't follow the codes. Don't go to Asabasa Spice. Don't order anything from them, because you're not going to get that from their company and their spices. But if you want some really high level flavor, some bold flavors, stuff that really makes you say, wow, Asabasa Spice is the place for you. I've been using them for a long time. Mark's a new convert, and word on the street is he's head over heels for it. He's got the family hooked. Listen, it's all natural stuff, no fillers, none of the crap you're going to get in the grocery store. It's just high level, basically artisan spices from our guys based out of the Greensboro area, not far from you, Mark, which is I think is hilarious. Pretty wild. So listen, if you like to cook, you like to grill, you like to smoke, we got the link in the comments. We got the code Big Flavor 15. You have nothing to lose. Check it out. I promise you'll be a customer for life. So listen, Mark, the schedule, we're starting to get some pieces. Yeah, there we go. We got the Asabasa band on the bottom. I love it. We're starting to get some pieces filling in on the schedule, which is crazy because it's only May. But we had Purdue actually that announced their non-conference schedule in its entirety, which is nuts. On that schedule is Marquette. So December 13th at Purdue, Marquette will be there. So huge non-conference matchup. We got the announcement of Kentucky St. John's in an MTE. That's a massive one. And then one that is going to be near and dear to your heart and anybody who has watched the last 3 national championships hearts, Florida and UConn, that has been announced for the Jimmy V deal. So listen, I'm excited. Obviously it's only May, so can't get too crazy yet. But when you start looking at some of these games that are getting on the schedule and you start seeing these marquee matchups that are involving the UConns and St. John's and the Marquettes. I know Creighton's got some stuff rolling too, and the rest of the Big East will have some big time non-con games. I think it's an opportunity for the Big East to establish itself early on, and really help us, when it comes down to tournament time and our seeding. But I know we get crushed on. I got crushed last week on my UConn take on Caravan. We get crushed for being homers. It's all part of the deal. I love it. But I do want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about UConn, Florida, that matchup, because I know you had some interesting takes too on the game, the tournament game. Obviously, this is going to be a different team. It's not like it's a rematch. It's just the two programs. But what does this mean to a UConn? How do you think the fans are going to be feeling about this matchup when it's time?
Well, it's already the war has already started on social media between the Florida fans who care about basketball and UConn, right? Because I think anytime you face an SEC team, I'm always curious, like who really cares about basketball in the SEC, and is it really just like a status thing for them? And obviously the players and the coaches care, and their families and their fans and stuff, but like it's less than, it matters more in the Big East. And I'm not saying that because we do a Big East network, but like it's just the truth. Like you may even have a smaller fan base. You think it matters more to Florida that they won a national championship in basketball, or would it matter more for DePaul to make a Final Four? Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like there's levels to this. Sure. It's kind of like the reason why I say that is it's a great matchup for UConn in terms of non-conference. You're going to play a team that's probably going to be ranked in the top 10 in the preseason, if not higher. UConn somewhere in between 2 and 5 preseason rankings I've seen. So it definitely is going to be a marquee matchup. I think the fans are going to be super excited. I know UConn fans are going to be chomping at the bit. I will give kudos to Todd Golden and his staff for playing in New York, because it's a road game. Like, don't get it twisted. This won't be some Florida fans will travel, but it's going to be a sea of blue, like the colors you see behind me. Definitely not orange and blue. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, UConn's reloaded and retained, and then Florida is obviously reloading too. I mean, I think Florida is going to be very good for a very long time. So.
Yeah, as do I. I think Coach Golden can really coach ball. Very into analytics, and just, he's young. I think the future is definitely bright there. I mean, I also think too is looking at going back to the Marquette Purdue matchup. That one's interesting.
I love it. That's like a old school two programs that are kind of like beat you up physically. I don't know. I think Purdue's gonna be really good next year. Like really good.
They are, and that's what I'm interested in, because you look at Marquette, and from a recruiting perspective, you got it. It's like this, right? You can have your opinion on what they should do, but there really is no debating on the fact that Coach Smart has kept his word, and he's doing what he said he was going to do in terms of he's not building teams through the portal. He's continuing to go the high school route. They just got a commitment. I forget his name right now. They just got a 2026 commit, 2 days ago. So, I mean, they're continuing to build that way. I will say that's a hard matchup. Any Big Ten team is going to be tough when you're going to have a younger team. But Purdue, when they're going to be top 5 preseason,
they may be number 1.
Yeah, they very well could be at their place. It's going to be a battle. So. But
Marquette,
I think it's fair
the recruit you're talking about is Ethan Johnston, yes. 6'6" wing from the Hill School in Philadelphia.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see that one. Obviously, the big one, St. John's, Kentucky. How cool is that? For Coach Pitino, it's going to be it'll be pretty neat. It's another one of those that you have to kind of tip your cap, like, hey man, it's kind of cool. They're going to play this game. You don't always see that, but. Got 2. I mean, Kentucky's been reportedly the biggest spenders in the country on NIL, and then St. John's isn't that far behind them. Could be another one of those top 5 preseason, top 3 preseason teams. You never know, but should be a heck of a battle, and makes for some exciting scheduling for sure.
Yeah, I think if I'm being honest. Whether it's, and I know I do a daily Big East show or a daily UConn show, but I'm the most excited for St. John's, Kentucky, because I'll be wearing my Big East Energy Queens shirt that day. I will tell you that from the jump, because I want Rick Pitino and those boys to go into Atlanta, which they're calling Catlanta, which is the corniest thing I've ever heard, and just dominate them. Like, physically, emotionally, mentally, any way you could potentially dominate someone, and basically just keep that fan base humble, because the Kentucky fan base, although very big and very vocal, gets a little too big for its britches, considering they haven't really won anything in the modern era in they won 2012, but that's one 95, 96 area. I mean, yeah. I always like to tweet Kentucky fans and say, like, hey man, like, all of your titles were like pre really anybody doing anything social media, pre cell phone, pre Field of 68, Field of 64. So there's a lot of programs like that. So I do tend to try to tweak them a little bit on that. And it's also Patino versus Kentucky, because he's going back to where he basically started his whole dominant college regime, so to speak. So I think that's the biggest storyline, but it's also going to be really funny when St. John's wins that game. Yeah,
it will be. Well, what we'll have to do as we get closer, we'll have to get our boy Aaron Torres on here, the author of One and Done or One and Fun. Gosh, he's going to kill me for this one, but I've got the book over there somewhere, and we'll have to get his take because he's still pretty tied in to Kentucky basketball. So, but as a Big East guy and a UConn faithful, he'll have some hot takes for us on that matchup. But Speaking of hot takes and Big East teams, we got a new spot for you to get your hot takes and news on Seton Hall basketball coming up next. Well, we're fired up. Mark, I know you're excited. I'm pumped. We are welcoming in Pirate Vibes, your go-to spot for Seton Hall news, bringing them on to the Big East Energy Media Network and Podcast Network. And we couldn't be more excited to have Brian and Pirate Vibes joining the team. So, look for his debut episode. Actually, it would have already it'll already have released by the time you're watching this. So go check that one out if you're a Seton Hall fan. If you're a Big East fan, if you're just a basketball fan, go check him out. He does a great job. He puts a lot of work into it. And we are excited to have another team now represented on the network.
Yeah, and the thing that I love about Brian too is listening to some of his stuff before he came on, because he was just starting to begin with. So he jumped on my radar, and I really wanted to see if he would be interested in doing a weekly show for us. And then it's going to increase during the season. But right now, he's tied into the program. I know he's got he's going to do some women's stuff too. Like he's got an interview with their head coach coming in a couple weeks. Once that I forget his name off the top of my head, comes back from vacation. So it's going to be an all encompassing show. We had this conversation, of like probably about 2 weeks ago. He's like, look, he's like UConn women are different than everybody else in the Big East. He's like, but I'm definitely going to cover the women too. And I was like, that's great. So if you're into the Seton Hall men, Seton Hall women, he's going to be your guy. The other thing I loved about him too is his first show is, can Seton Hall survive like this era? So it's not all sunshines and rainbows. The two of us are fortunate enough to cover and be a part of a community of fans that really have high optimism about their teams. We've had talks with some St. John's podcasters to come on and do some stuff for us here. I know they're super excited about it. Providence always seems to have their antennas up even when they're really bad. DePaul is on the come up. Butler and Xavier kind of similar in the mix there, but the Seton Hall one is so interesting because this is a program that had some history. It's not like they've never done anything before. And if they're one of the, like I always joke around, like the Big East is kind of like hockey. It has its original 8 or whatever, and then some of that is stuck around, and Seton Hall is a part of that. And a great history of great coaches, players. Shaheem Holloway being one of them, and he's their coach. So, there's one optimism that I will say about Seton Hall. Shaheem Holloway took a St. Peter's team to the Elite 8. So if you're going to sit there and tell me that it's not possible for him to coach an underdog group to higher lengths, I think that you'd be foolhardy to believe that. I don't think you can. I think you can also have the take that you can't consistently win that way, right? So I think that's kind of what he's going to be dealing with. What Brian's going to be kind of diving into is how soon is NIL going to potentially kick in for this Seton Hall team. They have a brand new facility. Like they're trying to upgrade things. is it next year? Is it is it this year? Are they going to make any splashy portal moves? I doubt it. And I think that's going to be the challenge for the team and also for Brian covering it.
Yeah, for sure. I think the key for Seton Hall too is whenever revenue sharing actually kicks in, and it will kind of, depending on the rules on collectives and how they can give that money out, it could level the playing field a little bit.
Right.
And see, I still think there's going to be some strong advantages.
But as I had a guest on who basically teaches and is a professor and went to Harvard Business School on my Hoops Cap Pod show yesterday. David Noble, who does a lot of UConn stuff, he believes that the market, like the revenue sharing, is just not going to end up happening, like ever, because his comment is, how can you potentially tell someone you can't make X amount of money? It's a free market. Like, there's going to be so many lawsuits. It's never really going to get off the mat. So all of the
his thing is more not that revenue sharing isn't going to happen, but that the restriction on the collective and paying out of the collective won't happen. I got you. Yeah, I mean, that's
because how can you say to a team like a football team, like Seton Hall doesn't have football, but how can you say to Michigan, like I used Michigan, he used Oregon. Do you know how much Oregon paid for football last year? How much money they paid out for their entire team? $40 million. $40 million. Okay. So, and that's 100 players or 90 players or whatever that is. It's still a lot of money. So how do you then say, okay, well, now we're going to kind of like cap that? Like you just can't do that. Like it just won't happen. Because it's already what the NCAA did is essentially the cat's out of the bag. And it's hard to, whatever analogy you want to use, the genie's out of the bottle. Like you can't put it back in. And so that's the unfortunate part. And then I saw an article with Ross Dellinger talking about how, how the dynamics work. They're trying to work on a collaboration or a compromise that it's now the Power Four conferences, which the Big East isn't part of, is going to get 51% of the say on how all this works out versus it was like 65% of the NCAA, 35% before. And now they're trying to flip it. And like, I haven't dove into it. We can definitely dive into it. But if that happens, it essentially means not the end of small market teams. It just means that you have to, if you're a private market like Villanova, you're a private school, you got to up the ante. Like you can't, or like Seton Hall, like you can't expect revenue share. I think that's their biggest mistake is to expect it. You have to have contingency plans outside of it.
Yeah. No, it's a good call. We'll see what happens there, but we're excited to have Brian on and breaking it down and using his connections. And the other thing too we wanted to say is we put out some announcements yesterday. We crossed the 6,000 subscriber mark, and so that's awesome for us. It's exciting. Hopefully, it's exciting for all of you that have subscribed and you're getting some value out of these podcasts. We just want to say thank you to any of you that are watching this that aren't part of that now. 6,588 subscribers. It's not too late. Hit that subscribe button. Yeah. Join us. We're going to continue to pump out some great Big East content, bringing on new podcasts. Hopefully, getting some news announced the next couple weeks on that. So stay tuned with us. We're doing our part. We're trying to give you guys some fantastic Big East coverage, some exciting stuff, and if nothing else, just bring the energy around Big East basketball. So. This is another episode of the Big East Energy Weekly. Thanks again to our sponsor, Asabasa Spice. Get your spices, Asabasa Spice, and we will see you again next week.